When I first heard the term fast fashion, I didn't honestly really know what it meant. I thought it was just kind of this term to describe the fashion industry. But when I got down to the nitty gritty and actually looked up the definition, I found it pretty interesting. The official definition, if you will, is a contemporary term used by fashion retailers to express that designs move from the catwalk quickly to capture current fashion trends. Fast fashion clothing collections are based on the most recent fashion trends presented at Fashion Week in both the spring and fall of each year. So a couple of weeks ago, we have Fashion Week in New York City. Everybody's traveling there. Everybody's going and seeing all of the catwalks and all of the different fashion shows. And basically retailers like H&M, Forever 21, those typical fast fashion retailers see those designs and then they move quickly on those designs. And suddenly you will see trends in the stores, sometimes within a few weeks. But the thing about fast fashion is that while it might be convenient for a consumer to get their hands on something that's trendy very quickly, it's actually really harmful to the people and the environment behind those pieces of clothing. It's not something that we probably give very much thought to, but it's something we probably should. Saloni Shrestha, the founder of AGAATI, a luxury designer fashion brand, is trying to buck the trend of this fast fashion world. They make beautiful clothing that is sustainable and accessible and fashionable and bold and bright and beautiful. It looks high-end, it's well-made, and it's kind to both the people and the environment that are behind it. Saloni grew up in the Himalayan region of India, and after traveling the world, she realized that she had a passion for color and culture. And as she grew older, she realized that she loved fashion. But the more she learned about the fashion industry, she realized she didn't love the fashion industry. And so she wanted to create a brand that was kind to people and the environment while also being trendy, fashion forward, and beautiful. Welcome to Business with Purpose. I'm your host, Molly Stillman of StillBeingMolly.com, and this show is all about bringing you the stories behind the brands, companies, and small businesses that are changing the world. Each week, I interview an entrepreneur, a CEO, nonprofit director, community leader, or just all-around amazing person who is trying to make a positive impact, not only through their personal life, but also with their professional career. My goal is to show you that no matter what you do for a living, you can make an impact right where you are. Now on to the show and enjoy this chat with Saloni Shrestha. Hello, Saloni. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Molly. Thank you for having me here.
I have been looking forward to this so much, and I have been following you and AGAATI online for, months, maybe even coming up on a year. And ever since I came across you guys, I just love everything that you're doing. So I'm so excited just to hear your story and how it got started and just hear your background and all of that. So without further ado, I would love for you to do what I have all my guests do, and that's give us the Saloni 101. So tell me your story, where you're from, where you grew up, and all the things that have sort of transpired to lead you to where you are today.
Fantastic. Firstly, thank you for this opportunity. Myself and the AGAATI team is very thankful for, getting an opportunity to share our story what we are all about, what we have to offer. And here we go. So I was born in the Himalayan region of India. Ever since the age of 16, I have, been traveling and doing several things around the cities in India. And then I kind of did my master's in business administration, moved out, worked in Singapore for several years. And that's when my first, call for a creative career came about, which was very, very strongly supported by my, partner, my husband. And there was a contemporary women's wear brand that was very bold, colors and prints, that was designed around this. The inspiration was around that, and it was very wearable at the same time. Singapore was a very good, a founding ground where they supported local designers very much. I was a self-taught designer. And after about 2.5, 3 years of running the business, the question was, okay, what do I do next? Because I think being progressive and unlearning to learn more was very important for me. So that's when I headed to New York, and I graduated from Parsons.
Oh, wow.
Learned so much. It was an intense, a year and a half, and managed to meet wonderful, creative people, young people, who had so much to offer for the future of tomorrow. Through their creativity and innovative minds, learned so much from them, and also was fortunate to, intern and be trained within the ateliers of Oscar de la Renta,
Wow.
within the fabric department of DVF, again, the atelier and of Zach Posen, all-round design internship in Naheem Khan. So there was, amazing learning experience there as well. I always wanted to, of course, get back to, starting my own brand. And the question was, what will it be? I did not want to, discover something that would have a shaky background that I would not be sure about would last for, 5 years, 6 years. So what would be the philosophy of the brand was the question. And I have to say that, the seed for a sustainable brand was actually born while being at Parsons, because there were, some professors, there was, a course in zero waste design that got me thinking to actually there is a completely different side to, just making products and manufacturing them and sourcing them without really knowing the story, the processes, the pros and the cons, pre-design and post-design. So that was where a very, very, interesting journey for sustainable design thinking began. And then, I moved to California about a year and a half back. And that's when things got, I think, even more clearer as to, yes, I do want to, launch a women's wear brand that thought about the environment, that thought about the people, that worked within this environment, and how can a brand be born that could be an impact for tomorrow, that could be completely fashionable. So that is where, I came across, obviously, another person, my business partner, who was also very much interested in a journey like this. And together we came about to find, to found AGAATI. And the meaning of AGAATI is actually comes from a Sanskrit word called, it's the meaning is origin, or the arrival, the arising of something. And that was so true to what we wanted to do. We wanted to make very, very design-centric garments that were limited editions. At the same time, it worked in creating employment, in making sure that we share stories of craftsmanship that has been coming along for many years to people. People definitely don't know so many stories that's behind the embroidery, behind the weave. So we would want to work with weavers from different parts of the world where, this craftsmanship is still alive, and help in that, work with natural fibers as well, and encourage to let our shoppers and the consumers know what is fair trade and why they should question something that is so amazingly priced like $10, but why is it $10 versus something that is handmade and would obviously be priced so differently. So I think just a brand that would have a mission of being the most fashionable wardrobe offered to consumers, in the sustainable category is what I would say we are as of today.
That is amazing. You have just done so much, and it's in a lot of ways like you have both been doing this for so long, but then in some ways you've also just started, and it's amazing just to see what you guys are doing. And when I think of, and I've told people about AGAATI, I think of it as it's so fashion forward. And I love seeing, because a lot of times, and I don't think this is bad, but a lot of times in the sustainable ethical fashion industry, a lot of brands are all very kind of carry a lot of basics, a lot of very simple design, which I think is great. And I love and wear a lot of those brands. But it is, like you were saying, it's very hard to find, or it can be a little bit more difficult to find an ethical or sustainable fashion brand that's carrying a lot of bright, bold pieces, very fashion forward, a lot of embroidery, a lot of pattern, different, even carrying things with trends. Like you guys have some beautiful off-the-shoulder pieces, which is very trendy and fashion forward right now. So I just love how you've meshed those two worlds, and how I think there's this very large misconception that consumers have that aren't as familiar with the sustainable fashion world, where they think that you can't get very bold or trendy pieces. And I'm like, oh no, that is not true at all. You're just not looking in the right places. And I think that AGAATI is one of those brands that bold, like lots of color, florals. So I love what you guys are doing.
Thank you so much. And we hope to, we are very excited to bring another collection for fall winter that has some amazing art, ribbon art, which is done on dead stock fabric. So there is constant, I think it's a constant discovery journey for us as well. And, we absolutely, it is, of course, the aesthetics is very different from most of the sustainable brands. But, what we see is there are so many brands who do beautiful, basic essentials and the fabrics, even though it is a simple top or a bottom, the fabrics melt in your hands, and it's so well thought of and clean.
Yes.
And we thought there are some amazing brands who do that. So we do what we are kind of, our experiences are rich about.
Yeah.
Both me and my founder have traveled around a lot. We have grown up amidst colors and culture and so many meetings, so many, people from different backgrounds, and it enhances the curiosity so much to keep meeting and seeing more of those. So I think that is why the strong aesthetics of, and also my individual love for couture. I love these heritage houses who have amazing work, but of course at completely unimaginable prices. So this is what we want to bring, to our beautiful, inspiring women. A brand that has touches and hints of couture work to it. At the same time, it is very wearable, and they are price friendly as well. So people do ask us, how can you manage this kind of pricing level? We do want people to buy AGAATI at the way it has been designed, and prices that is comfortable for them, so that they understand the stories around sustainability. We want them to encourage to come and shop sustainable clothing lines, not just ours, but spread the story even for the other brands in this community. So yes, we are price friendly as well, and hopefully we can bring about even pre-orders or custom designs to our customers, which is obviously about specific. There are some specific requirements with natural fiber products, or some very specially weaved textile that we work with. There are artisans, weavers in India that we had a very special project with to get the stripe. There is a specific fabric in our collection that got weaved, and we will be going to Nepal soon. So This is where the attention to detail in our process comes about, and we love it. Hopefully we can bring more of it to you guys.
Yes. Now, I have to ask, so, you said that a lot of the design inspiration comes from both you and your business partners, just, your love of travel and how you've seen the world. And for you yourself, having been born and growing up in India, and I love Indian fashion. Like, I had a couple of my friends growing up were from India, and they're just the beautiful colors and the clothes and just the intricate embroidery. I mean, it's unlike anything, and truly almost in any other culture that I've ever seen, is just the beautiful, beautiful fabrics that are used in Indian culture. Does a lot of that, how does your own background and your childhood and just where you grew up, how does that really influence your design and love for color?
Actually, I think if I have to go down the memory lane, it always began with, growing up days of seeing my mother, every day get ready to work in the morning, and, wearing this, beautifully assembled, saris, the traditional Indian wear, which is also one of the zero waste garments because it is one long stretch of fabric.
Yeah.
Wastage to that. And it was always amazing. And I would always wait until she kind of, during the summer vacations when I would come back home. And I would always watch her walk out the door from the jewelry she would kind of, mesh up with the different saris and the patterns to the saris and the shoes she would put together. She was always, or she will always be my biggest, inspiring muse.
I love that.
And yeah, I don't know. She was so naturally, tuned to it, and she loved doing embroidery. Like in our own home, there was so much of, like the sofa covers to the bed covers. Like she would do so much of embroidery herself. So I think it all began at home. And India has such an amazing history in textile. So I grew up doing a lot of textile manipulation myself. I would totally just hand sew some of the garments while growing up. When I could not, buy exactly what design I had in mind, being inspired by the Bollywood movies, I would go and hand sew them myself, and I would also design for my friends. So I think it just kind of journey began with not only what you see at home and get inspired with. Fashion was always, something so critical as a part of our growing up lives, seeing my mother, seeing, the beautiful, divas of Bollywood. And then slowly evolving into what I saw outside India. Like Asia has a very different flavor. The rest of Southeast Asia, for example, like Singapore has, there is a very big Chinese segment, a culture, a Malay culture. There is Indonesia nearby, which has, amazing fabric there as well, and the handwork that goes into it. There is block printings and we could have an endless conversation around the whole history of textile that comes from, South Asia and Southeast Asia. So I think just coming about that, and when I got to explore commercially, like, actually selling your art to consumers, when I founded my first brand, I think that's where it kind of heightened even more that it's not just seeing and doing it for yourself as a hobby, but when you actually are creating art in a wearable form, thinking of the commercial side of it as well, to the end users. So I think, yes, I hope that answers your question.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I want to talk a little bit about one of the things that I know, if not the thing that is the most important to you as you developed AGAATI, and that is the sustainability and the ethics piece. And this is one of those things that, because I talk to business owners in this space a lot, and because this is something that I'm really passionate about, it's funny how I think sometimes I can take for granted that I know about a lot of this stuff, but I realize that it is still the reality that most people just don't really understand and have a full grasp of the importance of this issue and how there's a trickle down effect that happens in so many ways when we talk about, just by empowering artisans and paying people a fair wage and paying women a fair wage, and how that affects families and how that affects kids and people are, girls are able to get an education and boys are able to get an education and they're able to grow up and be, contributing members of society. And then you have everything from how it affects human trafficking and all these types of things that are connected in so many ways. And so this is a huge piece of AGAATI. And I would love for you to just kind of share talk about your artisans. And so where is the clothing manufactured, and what was all the process that went into that portion as you were developing this brand?
When AGAATI started, we were a little lucky that there was a certain supply chain that I was already familiar to. Mm-hmm. For example, the factory that I worked with, during the operations of the previous brand. So starting with familiar ground, I think was always, it was always the first choice. So I went back to the old factory, who completely operates on a good working environment. And how I know that is because I have spent, a lot of time sitting in her office, working with her tailors in the past. And that is what I did again for our recent collection, where about 5 weeks was in India. So yes, starting off, the first collection where we did not have a very big window, but at the same time, we did not want to completely skip this year's collection and move into the next. Mm-hmm. We decided that let us start with a familiar partner. And this is a women-led, she is a very tough, a lady who runs this factory, and she's been doing this business for years. So it was also, amazing to support another woman. When I see her managing, this massive team, it is inspiring to kind of, see a woman boss there as well. And what happened was, obviously, we had to find also another factory that could do a lot more about embroidery. And we did look around in LA and San Francisco. I think that is where the challenge was, that we could not find ateliers that could do a lot of the embroidery work or the traditional, sort of craftsmanship that we wanted to showcase in our designs. So that is why we again went back to India to find, another factory. And this another factory also is it's a small team, but where again it is women led. It is a woman led factory that has a small team, but a very happy team. I've been working with them for many months now, and I was there, sharing my own techniques that I learned at Parsons, because sometimes the techniques they use is a little bit not outdated, I would say, but not so friendly for the Western world clients. So I felt that if I transfer some of this knowledge on pattern making and on, cutting the fabrics effectively by making them think about as less wastage, that would, maybe not only help us, of course, because they're working in a more efficient way and more in a high fashion standard practices, but at the same time there will be lesser wastage in fabric cutting. So we've taken step-by-step process. These pattern makers and sewers, a lot of them in India are men. It is a little different from the rest of the world, where there are many, many women sewers and, knitters and embroidery people. Whereas in India, for example, in Delhi, you will find a lot of them are men, and they're very, very hardworking. They all come from very simple backgrounds, but they're all very talented as well, because they have spent, their entire life doing this. So I can see that when I go and work with them, or someone from AGAATI would go and work with them, there is a very personal connection that builds up. And when they see the client in front of them across their table, it makes a very big difference to them. And, they have amazing respect that they show to the client. And when they see that back coming to them, I think it becomes a very, mutual process of, respect and admiration for the work that is going on. It is not just about money. I think the respect that they get in us showing to them also makes a very big impact. So I personally love that process. And they have done amazing work with, the collections. And you will see in our fall winter as well, there is some beautiful work going on. And I'm very thankful, I'm very thankful that they are so many miles away, but, I can completely rely on what they are doing there and how they are managing it for us. And this all comes about with the visits and the face-to-face communication and the time we spent with them. It comes around with that. So I would definitely say to, a lot of the business owners and designers who sit in this part of the world and they work with Cambodia or with India, it's nice to make a visit, even if it is once a year, so that you get to see how these factories operate, how many even simple processes, like how many breaks do they get, and are they happy, and are they being managed well, and is there any child labor going on? Because when you're sitting there for hours, you get to know their operations. And these factories, one of the factories very much audited, by the government agencies, and the other one, they are not certified as a fair trade practice, because I believe, it takes a lot of, I think, investment on their side.
It does.
Yeah, so that is a very big challenge that they face, at least in India. So we are constantly looking at, I think, the supply chain, which is so important, that we maintain a good relationship and we help out these factories we work with. At the same time, we are also in the endeavor to look out for factories here in LA and San Francisco, so that we work with both the economies. Although we are a small business, we come from backgrounds where our past roles have been about how can we impact the economy of the society that we are living in as well. Although we could be travelers.
Yeah.
So that is important. And, we buy our fabrics, a lot of our fabrics in LA. And so that is also a very conscious decision, where, there is dead stock or there is some beautiful, surplus fabric that gets sold in some of these, good partners we have found. And then we kind of bring them to India to get the textile manipulation done to them.
Yeah. I love that you guys really think about the impact that you have both globally and domestically. I think that just shows such intention and just dedication to the overall craft, and then the experience, and then the final product. You mentioned something earlier that I think is also a really important thing to talk about, and that is, you talked about how as you were, studying and as you were getting really into learning about the whole process. You talked about the pre and post design. So, when you talk about when you design a piece of clothing, like sometimes as consumers, we can get into this mindset of, somebody draws a picture of a nice dress and then somebody makes it. Like, it's not that simple. You think about, you have to design it, you have to make the pattern, you have to find the fabric, you cut the fabric, you do the sample pieces, you adjust for fitting, you then take into account different sizes, and then there's all this, and then but even going further back, for the fabric, you think about somebody has to grow the cotton, somebody has to gin the cotton, then it has to be, milled, and then it has to be actually made into fabric. Like, there's all these different steps that go into the making of our clothes, and we don't realize that. We take that I think so many of us take that for granted. And so you go into the store and you see a shirt that is maybe $10 or it's $5, and you go, oh, that's so cheap. And for me now, I've gotten to this point where I want to know why. Why is it so cheap? Why that, if you look at a pair of jeans that are $10, I think there's no way that you can tell me that every single person that touched that pair of jeans along the supply chain, from the time the cotton was grown till when it was ginned, to when it was milled and made into fabric and made into denim and cut, and the rivets were put on and the zippers were put on, and then it had to be shipped and all that kind of stuff. You can't tell me all the people along the way that impacted that one pair of jeans were paid fairly if that pair of jeans is $10. It's one of those things that I think so many consumers take for granted. And I really love how you guys are so intentional and so passionate about making sure that all those things are just really taken care of. You know what I mean?
Yes. I mean, if I may add here, just this thought of yours, I think it's very important that the responsibility begins with, businesses.
Yes.
Talking about it and sharing this information, to people. Because when I was on the other side, this transformation did not happen overnight. It took a lot of time, came about where I bumped into information. And, it is all about learnings, and it is all about how often does, information about climate change, about, animal cruelty, about, the bad effects of polyester, or I don't know, silk, variations of pea silk and, the normal silk. Mm-hmm. All this information, it just comes a lot over time. So I think as businesses, the more we keep sharing stories about this weaver, for example, we work with, and, how much time and hard work it takes to weave, handloom fabrics. It is not as simple as, sharing a price at the end of it. It is every bit of, as you mentioned, every bit of process and the touch points that go about. And, if someone is making 10,000 pieces of a top, and if even 20% of it goes into landfill, do people even know that landfills exist? And even if they know, do they know how much of the earth is choking because of this landfill? Mm-hmm. I think all of this information, if it gets slowly into the inbox, into the Facebook walls, into, some kind of even the media taking a lead into it, and activists are already doing so much about it. I think the more we as businesses also inform, not just about beautiful designs, but the impact by, shopping consciously, I think that could help. Sometimes, we are not perfect either. We would love to be. We started off by trying to be, so many things, but it is not easy.
Oh, completely.
Yeah. So, we've chosen that we would want to help the artisans around the world create employment, talk about craftsmanship. We would work with natural fibers. We would make sure to focus on fair trade, and of course the design part of, that kind of, puts an umbrella on it. But other than that, sometimes I am walking past H&M and, there is a very big tendency to go in and see what's going on. I used to be an H&M buyer at one point.
Yeah.
And it is a very challenging task, I must say. But hopefully with, baby steps, and more people and more businesses are talking about it, I think, choosing, I think the right causes, again, because sustainability is such a big, complex area by itself, complex field to study by itself.
Absolutely.
But maybe we can start with, easy choices like planting trees.
Yeah.
I planted about 8 trees because we wanted to make sure that we start learning how to offset our travels. So, our carbon footprint. So we planted about 8 trees, and hopefully we have, we are supporting the California State Parks, so we can do something along that lines as well. So I think baby steps.
Absolutely. And that's always what I tell people too, is this is such a complex, overwhelming issue, and it's never going to be fixed overnight. But the more that all of us individually can educate ourselves, can educate our friends and our family, and then make choices for ourselves as individuals and our families, that, those types of things make a lasting impact. When I had Hamilton Perkins on the show a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things we talked about was the impact of, just when one person switches to using reusable grocery bags rather than, the plastic grocery bags in the store, or somebody switches to using a reusable glass water bottle rather than plastic water bottles. Just like little things like that really can add up and make a difference over time. And sometimes people, I think people feel overwhelmed, and so then they just think, well, I'm too overwhelmed. I don't know what to do, and so I'm just not going to do anything. And they don't realize that, well, you don't have to do everything. You can just do one thing, just change one thing, or make one positive decision that positively impacts your community or the world or whatever, and it really does add up. It really, really does. But you're right. I think it's so complex, and it can be overwhelming, so people just decide to do nothing.
I think, but also meeting people, for me personally, it has been, the different kinds of people and the practices, from New York to California, here in the, Bay Area. I mean, they are so particular about, having different bins for recycled materials, for compost, for landfills. And then I suddenly realized that when there is a bin for landfill, and then you realize how much trash is going into that landfill, you become, I don't know how others feel about it, but I would like to throw as less as possible into that bin. That's how the habit started, at home. And everywhere around here. It is amazing how, from the restaurants, coffee shops, and, people bringing their own bags for grocery. These practices are, I think, very much, signs of a very progressive community, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's great to be here at this time, learning as well from people around you, and, building that consciousness as well, not only my personal life, and bringing it into AGAATI as well in just a different form.
Okay, so I have to ask about some of your, when you said that when you had studied at Parsons and you graduated from Parsons and you began training and interning and studying under Zach Posen and Oscar de la Renta and Diane von Furstenberg, I would love to know, what was your experience working for some of those very large fashion brands? And can you speak to any of what you learned working for them that you've used in launching your own brand? And did you learn about, the impacts, either positively or negatively of fashion on, everything from manufacturing to, environmental impact, anything like that, working for those brands?
I think my key takeaways, which again was the main focus as well. Like, I always had a very clear objective for each of the houses that I went to, what I would like to take away as. And because none of them were, sort of certified sustainable brands, it was more about focusing on their, design processes, about how, what were the best practices within, the pattern making and sewing. Or also, of course, there's a lot of errands that happen within internships, but out of that, just learning from some of these amazing team members of the design brands, the sampling and the atelier that I worked in, for example, in Oscar de la Renta, that I learned, they follow some of the couture techniques, and to be sitting there across the head cutter, who is an amazing lady, and she, with her patience, teaches every batch of interns so amazingly all her tricks of that she's learned her entire life. And when even Oscar de la Renta himself was alive, he was there in the atelier, and just knowing that you are in this place where this amazing designer used to walk around was so inspiring. But learning the actual, doing of, even tacking, I mean, that's a technical term that we use, but hand tacking fabrics before they are actually sewn, the cutting of it, and how do you prepare, before you actually go ahead and cut, fabrics so that they ultimately are, in a very good shape to be sewn. I think for me, it was a lot more on the design side.
Yeah.
For example, my colleagues at DVF, I was in the textile department, and I learned so much about, different ideas to that textile can be manipulated to look from, one form into something completely different, and how to do sourcing, for example, just sourcing a lot for their requirements for the different collections. I think it was, yes, a very, very holistic learning that I will never forget. And I would love to use those learnings, for AGAATI's, the actual pattern making and the sewing and the cutting and the fabric sourcing processes. But I would not be able to comment much on the sustainable or the eco impact side of it, unfortunately.
No, that's okay.
And just because I was focusing so much on the design process of it, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And and it's one of those things where I think it's just, when you are in different stages of life and you're learning different things, and you realize that your takeaways from different things are going to be unique. When I think back to just all the weird things I've done in my past, and jobs that, or internships I've had, or jobs I've held, where they don't even necessarily all connect, but they're all related in some way because, from one job I was able to learn communication skills. One job I was able to learn, how to really negotiate. Another job I was able to learn marketing skills, so I think it's all in how you are able to take away things that I guess I'm kind of messing this up, but just the way that you're able to learn different things from different jobs or different people, and those takeaways that you're able to then use to move yourself forward and to just pursue what you are passionate about. It's going to be a different experience for everybody, but I just, when you said that you were able to study under amazing designers like that, I can only imagine just what a dream that could be like.
Absolutely. It's still sort of, the biggest, I think, besides, of course, the seed of, sustainable zero waste philosophy thinking in Parsons that was born. Besides that, I think working at these amazing fashion houses will always be key takeaways from my time in New York. While alongside, I must say that while I was, learning and having these amazing notes, mental notes taken from these internships, alongside there was, these projects, live projects at Parsons going on where, there were garments to be designed where you don't waste any of the fabric that you have selected. And what do you do if it was so, to be very honest, it was a very complex process for me because I had never never created anything that had zero waste. And when you're put up to that challenge, I think I wasn't ready. So of course I did have, fabric that was waste, but then from that waste, what do you do next? And I can definitely share this. How did I transfer that into the current AGAATI model? So at the factories that we work with and during my visits, what we've done is we've kept a bag next to the fabric cutter. And he has been, during my entire presence, trained to make sure that whatever, of course, their whole pattern making process has been made more efficient by making them to think that we don't waste. We take 5 minutes, 10 minutes more to think, but we place patterns on the fabrics in a way that there is as less wastage. Mm-hmm. And this wastage matters to the clients because sometimes they are used to working with clients who are not there to monitor and who have a lot more volume. They already, of course, have computerized patterns that do already have minimized waste. But there are clients with limited editions like ours, or who operates in pre-orders, that don't have computerized patterns. And that's where we have to encourage them to have the manual process to minimize as less waste. So now I'm very happy to say that, they put a lot of this extra waste and pieces into that bag. And, when there is suddenly a shortage of fabric, or suddenly we want to do a new design, that's the bag we go to first before ordering any more fabric or before going for any, sourcing trips. So I'm very happy with that, and I hope we can do more about it. And we are constantly looking to see how we can recycle some of this, extra fabric that's there in those bags. Let's see. I'm hoping to do some interesting projects in future with that. We will keep you posted.
That's so exciting. Well, that sort of leads me to my final question, and that's what is on the horizon for AGAATI and you in the next, here in this last half of 2017 and into 2018? What can people look forward to seeing from you?
Okay. So we have a very big, trip planned, and where I would personally be actively working on it. We will be working with weavers again, weavers in India, and also weavers as well as hand knitters in Nepal.
Oh, wow.
So, yes, so I am very excited. It has been challenging to find, the right partners again, because we want to make sure that we are delivering, a beautiful, textile. Again, it's handloom fabric sometimes can be, it may not always be the aesthetics that AGAATI works with. Mm-hmm. So that is why, working with the right partner who understands your design philosophy and then translates that was important. But we are almost there in finalizing the partners, and then very soon, the whole traveling and sitting down with them and working with them project is going to begin. And I'm really looking forward to it. So our spring summer 18 and fall winter 18 would encapsulate, the handmade fabric for you all. And we do want to encourage, as much of hand weaved textile into our collections. And wherever we can, we will be using surplus silks as well. There are some beautiful, amazing silks, which is, textile is such a weak spot for me. So I always make sure that our design process begins with very intense research around the textile. So that is what you can expect. And let's see what else unfolds. The time is flying too fast, and too many things are happening. So I would say that would be something big to look forward to.
That is so exciting. And I can't wait to see what you guys just continue to put out there. And then also just to see how you guys continue to impact the sustainable fashion world and movement in general. I mean, I just think that you're really setting a tone, and I can't wait to see, that you guys, just how you continue to grow. And you, Saloni, just in general, I think you're amazing. You're so talented, and I think you're wonderful, and I can't wait to see how you yourself continue to grow.
Oh, I am looking forward to that as well. I am curious, to be honest. You never know. Sometimes you plan something and something else in store for you.
Yeah.
So I hope that this is what will be, for many years to come, a journey of impact, plus creating, beautiful designs for our, very, again, inspiring women and strong women. So, and thank you, to sustainable community members like yourself, Molly. I think we all small businesses need that voice, especially when we are starting up, when we are early in our journey, to reach out through you all with this voice. So thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So for everybody listening, if you're looking to connect with Saloni or AGAATI, you can find them online at agaati.com, and it's AGAATI.com. And on Instagram, they are at agaati.california. So AGAATI.California. on Instagram, and I will be sure to have all of the links down below where you can connect with Saloni and AGAATI online as well. So Saloni, thank you so much for coming on the show today, and I really appreciate you just sharing your story and sharing how you got started.
Thank you so much. The pleasure is all ours, and hope to hear from you again. We will keep in touch about everything that's happening.
Definitely. Oh my goodness. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Saloni. I loved how her passion just came through in every single thing that she said and every single thing that she does. And you need to check out AGAATI because it is a beautiful brand. So if we have not teased it enough, now is the time. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you are a first-time listener of the show, welcome. Be sure to visit the archives for past shows featuring amazing entrepreneurs and business owners who are literally changing the world with their businesses. If you're a regular listener of the show, thank you so much for tuning in and week out, and thank you for your support. Be sure to head on over to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Overcast, Radio Public, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you are subscribed to the show. Clicking that subscribe button helps to make sure that you never miss an episode of the podcast. And while you're there, would you mind taking a moment to leave a review of the show? Leaving a review of the show helps me to know what you're liking and how the show is personally impacting you. Reviews are also to show other potential listeners what this show is really all about. If you share the show on social media, be sure to use the hashtag BusinessWithPurposePodcast, or you can tag me at StillBeingMolly on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. This show is edited by my amazing husband and executive producer, John Stillman, and the music is by Mark Killian of Third Wheel Media. Thank you so much for listening, and go do something good with purpose on purpose.